Ladies and gentlemen, as the man you may know already, Scott Wise from Scotty's Brewhouse, and we're here today just to ask him a few brief questions about the soon-to-be grand opening of this wonderful new place, the Brew Pub, as I like to call it, Three Wise Men Brewing Company. Let me find out just a little bit about Scotty's Brewhouse in general. How did it get started, just kind of in brief?
It got started in 1996, and I always say it was a little luck, a little opportunity. A lot of things came together. It was a culmination of just a lot of good timing and hard work, but mostly I like to say luck, because I was 22 and I didn't know what I was doing. And for anybody to jump in the restaurant business when they're 22 years old and to be able to make it work for 14 years, I think the thing that I put the most emphasis on that got us to be where we are today is people that I surround myself with. So it's real. Three of the people that I started this company with, the two guys that I hired as bartenders originally in 1996, have been with me for 14 years now, and they're my VP of operations and my COO. So I think that says a lot about getting us to where we are today. It really is it's a business now. We're a company of over 750 employees, so I'm just one little guy in this giant corporation.
So you mentioned you have numerous locations now as restaurant-based establishments. You're moving more towards the brewery end of things with this establishment. Why the kind of change in pace from what you were doing before?
Well, the original goal from the day we started was to do this. But when I was 22, in 1996, it was the height, the first boom of craft brewing was around that time, right around the early 90s. And thankfully, I didn't have any kind of monetary backing to be able to do it back then. So it's always kind of been a dream. And the reason we have 30 draft beers at all of our restaurants was because I knew the second best thing to making our own was just to carry as much as I could on draft. So, and I tell a lot of people don't remember this, but in 1996, 97, when we started with 30 draft beers, no one else was doing that. There weren't, I mean, now you can name a dozen restaurants that have 15, 20, 50 beers on tap. Back then, we were one of the few that started that way. And not that I started a trend or anything, it was just something that I like beer, and I like to carry a lot of different draft beer. So that was the ultimate goal, was to always make our own. We just had to wait for the right opportunity to come about. And it was more than just, for us, after we got going with the way that it was, with just carrying our own 30 different draft beers, as we opened more and more restaurants, there became a point where I was like, okay, there's going to make good economies of scale where if someday I can create a production facility, not just, with this restaurant or this pub, we're creating two things. Really, it's three things. We're creating an area where you can come in here, have beer, and have pizza. The second thing we've created is a commissary where we're making our own sauces and cakes and pies. A lot of our food stuff that we make at all of the restaurants right now, we're going to make at this location and ship to all the other locations. And then the third, and obviously most important, is we're making our own beer. And by now having 5 different restaurants that I can ship to, it just really made great business sense to be able to make enough beer to serve the pub, but then also be able to take that beer and exclusively we're going to carry it to just the Scotty's Brewhouse restaurants. So we're not going to sell it to anybody else. We're just going to have it as our own label. So it kind of just the culmination of everything just made sense. And this even location, everything about this thing just fell into our lap. I wasn't looking. About 8 months ago, this all came to fruition, and I wasn't looking for anything. It just happened. Somebody told me I should go look at this place. I looked at it and I was like, man, this looks really good. And they had a loading dock for us to be able to pull our trucks up. So a lot of pieces just fell into place, and it was just almost like, all right, this is meant to be. Now's the time to take it on.
Well, I guess along with that, with opening this place, and there's been interest, I know, among my friends, interested to see what other locations, restaurant-wise, you may open. What are your plans, whether it be in the state or out of the state, or even on a West Coast or East Coast, for expanding the Scotty's brand?
I always say that I've got these short-term goals. Everyone they should set personal goals and business goals. You get the 6 month and the year and the 3 year and the 5 year. So I set these, but it seems like every time I set them, I was never planning on opening. I was really never planning on opening a second Scotty's Brewhouse in Indy, and then downtown happened. And then I said, okay, I'm done. I'm going to grow out of state. I'm headed to Chicago, and then the lake house happened. And then, then I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to Chicago, and then this happened. So, you can try to put the best laid plans out in front of you, but sometimes you just got to take what life throws at you. And I think it's been all great. I mean, with all these things that have happened, I believe there's always a plan and a reason for all of that. So, right now, the goal is we're looking at Columbus, Ohio. We're looking at the Fort Wayne market. And when I say looking, like we've got 2 locations at both those markets that we're actively speaking with people about. We were looking at South Bend. South Bend wanted us to be in there right now, and it was right at the time we were doing this, and I just couldn't handle one more project. I was just too much going on. So we let that one go. And then Chicago, Lincoln Park is going to happen. It'll happen within 2 years, just because I want it to. I know it'll be successful. I really, the way that I grow this concept, I tell everybody that I've been asked to open in Terre Haute and Anderson and every single little town around here. And not that any of them are bad, but then it becomes a job. And right now, it's a passion. I love what I do. I get to pick where I go. A great team around me. I love getting up in the morning and going to work and just working on this thing. So I want it to continue to be that. So our plan is to hit Chicago, maybe Fort Wayne, and Columbus. And from there, my plan is to be done with the Midwest, at least in this little pocket. I want to hit the southeast seaboard, so I'm looking at Charlotte, Charleston, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Greenville, to do I'd like to hit a pocket of restaurants down there, 5 or 6, and then after I do that, my goal is to get out west. So I would like to hit Phoenix, Southern California, San Diego. Ultimately, that's where I want to live. So if I can get the concept out west, then that's where I would like to take it. But then I think the other thing that lends to my concepts is I don't want to be a chain. People kind of now call us a chain, a small. We call ourselves kind of a regional franchise. But I think if you walk into any one of my restaurants, they still feel mom and pop, still a little independent, and that I don't want to lose that characteristic. And I think if I don't personally want to have 50, 100, 300 restaurants. My goal is to grow this thing slowly, methodically, grow where I want to live, grow where I want to visit. When I get up to a number, I think it's probably 18 to 25 restaurants, then I hope somebody comes along and says, here's a big check, Mr. Wise, you can go retire.
I think that's the ultimate goal for any small business owner, really. Let me just touch on a few points for your social media efforts, especially on Twitter and Facebook.
Sure.
Just kind of briefly, why did you choose social media over more traditional methods when you first started?
I give a lot of presentations on this, and I talk about there's really a couple reasons. First is I just like technology. I love being a geek. I like being inside, and just ever since the days of Atari and Centipede and everything else, I was one of those kids. So I love just trying new things. Second thing, and really, well, sidebar, and I'll tell you, from a marketing standpoint, anything I do in my restaurant, I think of myself as the end user. And if I think that it works on me, whether it's the food, the atmosphere, the taste of the beer, the taste of the drink, or the marketing, if it works on me, then I'm going to think it's going to work on you, it's going to work on somebody else. So with marketing, with digital media, social media, I always ask people, how many people get the newspaper? How many people still get the phone book? How many people read the TV guide? Why would I want to continue to advertise in a medium that no one uses anymore? Why? Because we're all electronic. We're all on our phones. We're all digitally connected. It started really as a way to get. I knew that I wasn't reading the newspaper anymore, but I'm still reading the Indy Star. I just read it in my email in my inbox every morning. So I tried to switch my marketing efforts to match that. And I knew people were. I was on MySpace when MySpace was Facebook. When Facebook was just for college students, MySpace was for all the older people. So that's where I really started. And the minute that Facebook opened the doors for everybody else to come on board, we trampled on in and said, okay, this is the way to go, because I know that people are going to be reading. If I can make it fun and lively, and anybody that follows me on Twitter knows that I'm an idiot. I try to make people laugh. politically incorrect. I piss people off all the time. But I do that on purpose, because if I just gave you marketing, you would turn me off. But because I connect with you and you get to see me as a real person, I mean, it's me sending all those tweets. It's me as a brand that connects with everybody that comes into my restaurant. So I have fun with it. I think the technology piece of it was important for me to get involved. And then the third, and probably the reason that really pushed us all the way in, was the recession or economic downturn, whatever you want to call it. But when that happened, my goal with my restaurant group was to not lay off a single person. I was going to do everything I could to not have to lay off any people, because I didn't have enough money to pay them. And to this day, I've fulfilled that promise. But I had to cut budgets. So we had to cut things like marketing. So marketing was the first thing where we could save $300,000, $400,000 by just slashing it. We cut every single piece of traditional marketing. And I wouldn't advise that for everybody. I still think even for us, there are little things that we'll dabble in here and there, real tiny, brochure at a Colts game or a Pacers game, or something where I know that I'm going to have a lot of people that are right next to my restaurant. But for the most part, we haven't gone back. Even though we're quote unquote coming out of this economic downturn, we're going to still do what we're doing because it's working. So we're using the email blasts and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Foursquare that we're big advocates of. So it's been something that it happened, the culmination of it happened for a lot of different reasons, whether it was the economy, my love for technology, the reason I think marketing is going that way. But I think it really is all played well together. And it's for us, it's been successful. A lot of people say, what's your ROI? And I always tell them that it's like any marketing. Unless you have a callback or some kind of return to action, if I put an ad in the newspaper, I don't know what's my ROI on that? I hope that 50,000 people read the paper. I hope that 25,000 see the ad, but I don't know if they do. I don't know if they skip over the sports section and see it. So same thing is happening with Twitter and Facebook and everything else. For me though, the beauty of Twitter, because it's just 24 hours, 7 days a week, on and on and on, it's top of the mind. Even if I'm not marketing to you and I'm not telling you something, if you're on your way home and you checked you're looking at your phone at a stoplight and you see a tweet from me and you're like, ooh, maybe I should go to the brew house for dinner tonight. Then I fulfilled my duty. Then I did my job on my social media marketing.
Yeah, and I know me and my wife do that quite a bit, especially on weekends with half-price apps. We're usually there at least every other weekend.
That's great.
A little bit, you mentioned your love for tech. I wanted to touch on something that Bruce McLean had mentioned at Blog Indiana, where the virtual table touch.
Yeah.
How is that going to work? How are you going to kind of blend that into what you're already doing?
Well, we already are kind of using it. We haven't, Bruce has a grandiose idea of establishing a company called Virtual Table Touch that we pour more efforts into. Right now, because of all this, I haven't been able to do that. But we classify it really as, if you go to a restaurant and you're sitting at a table and you're at a good restaurant, most times a manager will stop by and say, how is everything tonight? That's called a table touch. We try to get our management to do that. We want to know how the service is, how's your food. We really are trying to find out how is everything. What social media has allowed me to do is do a virtual table touch. So a lot of people, when they have a problem with something, and I think your wife has been one where we had an issue, and she got to see firsthand that I reach out and say, hey, we're not perfect. I'm sorry, let me make it up to you. Let me give you a reason to come back in here. And what I've done is not just connect with that customer, because that's the most important. I'm trying to fix a relationship that we burned. But even better than that is the fact that when I have 6,000 followers, so 6,000 other people got to see me interact back and forth with somebody to say, hey, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, let me fix it. So for us, it's been great. There's been occasions where I've had people in the restaurant, and you know me, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm addicted to it, so I'm always on it, and I check it all the time, and I'm like, oh, crap, somebody's having a bad experience. So I get on there. Somebody was telling me something was going on in my downtown restaurant. They misplaced their mug. So I called my manager right away and I said, hey, he's sitting at this table. He's got dark hair. I had to have him give me all these stats because I didn't know what he looked like. And I said, go over there and just take him a mug and say, this is from Scotty. We just wanted to apologize that we lost your mug. This kid was bedazzled by the fact that we went beyond, above and beyond the efforts. And I think it's all because of not that same person could have just said something to their server or their manager, but we're in a different society. We live in a world that's a little different, and I embrace it. I think it's something that works well, and we make it work for us.
Just a few slightly personal questions.
Okay.
Do you ever worry about taking on too much?
Yeah, I mean, I do. To this day, I probably still take on too much. But I mean, that's the life of an entrepreneur, type A, OCD person. I mean, that's just, that's me. So I try, this whole thing with Twitter and social media started with just me, and Bruce's role was almost created in our company because I created this monster that was just so big that I needed help. I can handle sending tweets and answering some of them, but there became a point where I was like, I need Bruce to help me create an application for, we got an iPhone app coming out next week. Our website, I just needed help, taking a lot of the stuff that we're doing and putting it on the website, blogging. So we've got almost a department now of digital media and technology that help, it's 3 people that help run what you see me put out there a lot. So I think there's a point where I know where I've got too much. I mean, at some point I'm just like, all right, I can't do it. Like this, like South Bend. I mean, it was hard for me to say no to that because I just don't like letting opportunities pass me by. But occasionally there's a point where my body knows, all right, you need more sleep, you're tired, you need to slow down, you can't go anymore. So just bring it back, dial it back a notch.
That makes sense. And I have to ask this question. Aside from Twitter and Facebook and the social media aspect, what one piece of technology do you absolutely not live without? Email?
I've got, I get, honestly, about 150 to 200 emails a day. My inbox right now is carrying 1,200 with about 400 of them being unread. I email myself daily to remind myself of things to do. It's kind of like my digital notebook. It's, if I'm at the gym, I send myself 3 different, I'll be lifting weights and I'll go over and I'll send myself an email of something I thought about that I need to work on for the restaurant or a new beer or a new idea. So I could not live without that. Especially, I don't know how people did it with restaurants in the olden days when there was an email. I don't know how they communicated with 5, 10, 100 different restaurants. For me, I communicate daily with my managers to say, what were your sales? Here's a new marketing promotion we got going on. Here's what happened last night with this. I don't know. I mean, fax machines. I don't know what I don't know what they use to communicate. Phones, maybe.
Probably. And if you can impart one piece of advice on the next generation of entrepreneurs, what would that be?
One piece of advice. Passion. I think no matter what you do in anything, as long as you love it and you've got, I think if you've got an idea that's solid and you put time and effort into it and you believe in it 100%, then go out and do it. Because I don't know how the saying goes, but the only failure that's out there is not actually going out and trying your idea. If you tried your idea and then it failed, well, then you did better than anybody else that never even got the balls to go out and try it. So I'm a big believer as an entrepreneur that says that you got to put your life on the line. I mean, everyone that sees me today sees this restaurant concept or our growth, and they don't know what I've done to get to where I am today. They don't know me back 14 years ago when I was running this place by myself. They didn't know the 7 days a week, 15 hours a day that I was working. They didn't know the restaurant that I had to close, that I lost $1 million, and that took me 10 years. It took me until about 2 years ago to pay off. No one knows those backstories. Everybody has them. Steve Jobs, Phil Knight, and I'm not putting myself in their realm, but I think any entrepreneur knows that you gotta have failures to be successful. And I think as long as you have passion for something, whatever it is, and a dream, then do it. Give it 100% and do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Wise. Scott, we appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.